All right, Shabbat Shalom, good morning. Thank you so much for being here. Special service celebrating the anniversary of OT and War and Gold. And we have Hazanit Yael here in a boot, which if you're watching you can't see. Actually, you might be able to see, but at some point you'll be able to see. There you go. So she'll be leading, I would say, most of the service, but before we knew she was coming this weekend, we assigned a teenager who wanted to do Musaf, and hasn't done it in a while, so if she shows up, she will be doing it. So enjoy our Shachari very briefly, abbreviated Psuke as well, while Hazanit Yael is still here. So please rise, page 73.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan la'atzach v'gina lebchin ben yom u'ben layla. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam sha'asani b'tzamo. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam sha'asani Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam sha'asani b'chorim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hokeach kivrihi. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam malbish sharamim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asurihi. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zokef kefufihi. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam roka aret alamayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam sha'asali kol tzorki. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamechin mitzadei gaber. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hozei se'al bigvura. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hozei se'al b'tikara. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam anoten laya'et ko'ah.
Okay, we be seated. Page 134.
Hallelujah, hallelujah, bekosho, hallelujah, bekiyauzo, hallelujah, bigvurotah, hallelujah, kerogudo, hallelujah, betega shofar, hallelujah, benever bechinor, hallelujah, betofu machor, hallelujah, beminim beudam, hallelujah, betzilzalei shama, hallelujah, betzilzalei trua, kol haneshama tehallelya, hallelujah, kol haneshama tehallelya, hallelujah.
143. 143.
Nishmat kol chai tivarech Hashem Adonai Eloheinu veruach kol Eloheinu malin shi'akayim. ומי ירוך לך על הגדול הגיבור לנו על היום כל השמיים בארץ. נהללך שבחך פארך וברך השם קודשך כאמור, לדבי ברכי נפשי את אדוני, בכל קרובי את שם קודשו. ההיל בתעצומות עוזך, הגדול בכבוד שמך, הגיבור לנצח הנורא בנורתך, המלך היושב על כיסא רם ונישא, שוכן עד מהרום וקדוש שמו. בפי ישרים תתהלל, ובדברי צדיקים תתברך, ובלשון חסידים תתרומם, ובקרב קדושים תתקדש, ובמחלות רביבות עמך בית ישראל. שכן חובה כל היצורים לפניך אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, להודות, להלל, לשבח, לפאר, לרומם, להדר, לברך, להלל, לקלס. כל דברי שירה ותשבחות, דוד בן ישי, עבדך משיחך, ישתבח שמך לעד מלכנו. ברכות והודאות מעתה ועד עולם, ברוך אתה אדוני, אל מלך גדול ותשבחות, אל הודאות אדון נפלאות, הבוחר בשירי זמרה, מלך מלכי עולמים. יתגדל ויקדש שמי רבם, יעמד ברכותינו וחייכון וימכון חי לכל בית ישראל, בגולה בזמן קריב אמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבנו קורח לעולם ולעולמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויפאר פרמן יתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי לקודשה בריחו. לעילה מלכו בכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירה מיומה, ויאמרו אמן.
Please rise, page 152.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך.
Baruch Adonai.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, יוצר אור ובורא חושך, עושה שלום ובורא את הכל. הכל יודו לנו. אין דרכך ואין זולתך, אפס בלתך ומי דומה לך. אין דרכך ואין זולתך, אפס בלתך ומי דומה לך. אין דרכך אדוני אלוהינו בעולם הזה, ואין זולתך מלכנו חיי עולם הבא. אפס זולתך גולים לימות המשיח, ואין דומה לך משיח לתחיית המתים. אל אדון על כל המעשים, ברוך ומבורך בפי כל נשמה, אדון לו בטובו מלא עולם, דעת ותבונה סובלים אותו. המתגאה על חיות הקודש ונדר בכבוד על המרכבה, זכותו משול לפני כיסו, חסד ורחמים לפני עבודו. טובים מאורות שברא אלוהינו יצרם, בדעת ובינה וחסד, כוח וגבורה נתן בהם, להיות מושלים בקרב תבל. מלא זיו ומפי כנוגה, נאה זיווה בכל העולם, זנבים בסתם וששים בבואם, עושים להם הרצון קונם. של יום השבת. תתברך זכורנו מלכנו וגואלנו ברא קדושים, נשתבח שמך לעד מלכנו. וכולם פורחים את פיהם בקדושת הרב שירה וזמרה, מברכים ומשבחים ומברים ומריצים ומקישים וממליכים את שם האל המלך הגדול הגיבור הנורא הקדוש הוא. וכולם מקבלים עליהם מלכות שמיים זה מזה ונותנים רשות זה לזה להגיש לצרם בנחת רוח ושפה ברורה ודמעה קדושה, כולם כאחד עונים ואומרים ביראה קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות מלוא כל הארץ כבודו. האופנים וחיות הקודש ורעש גדול מן הסים ומצרפים ומתן משבחים ויונים ברוך לכבוד אדוני במקומו ואל ברוך במות יגיתנו. אור חדש על ציון תאיר, אור חדש על ציון תאיר, ונשגח כולנו מהרה לאורו, מהרה לאורו. ברוך אתה אדוני יוצר המאורות, אהבה רבה אהבתנו, אדוני אלוהינו, חמלה גדולה וקרה, עמדת עלינו. אבינו מלכנו, בעבור אבותינו, שבתנו לך, אבינו מלכנו. ותלמדנו כחיים, כן תלכוננו תלמדנו, אבינו האב הרחמן, המרחם רחם עלינו, ותן ליבנו להבין ולהשכיל לשמוע, ללמוד וללמד, לשמור ולעשות, ולקיים את כל דברי תלמוד תורתך באהבה, והערנו בתורתך ונדבק בנינו במצוותיך. Yisrael b'Yahava. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. V'yahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levacha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'hayu ha'dvarim ha'ele asher Anochi mitzavecha hayom levavecha v'shinatam levanecha u'dibarta bam v'shitecha b'beitecha u'lechtecha b'derech u'b'shokbecha u'kumecha u'shartam le'od al yadecha v'hayu netatavot b'neinecha u'ktabtam al mezuzot b'ktecha u'b'nisharecha v'haya shemot yishmeru. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי ואתם קדושים ללכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם אלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם אדוני אלוהיכם אמת יציב ונכון וקיים וישר ונאמן ואהוב וחביב ונחמד ונעים ונורא ואדיר ומתוקן ומקובל וטוב ויפה הדבר הזה עלינו לעולם ועד אמת אלוהי עולם אלוקינו צור יעקב מגן אישנו לדור ודור קיים ושמו קיים and we saw not for Makoto Kayaman, Udvarkayim Kayahanim. Amet Shatahor Malhinu Heyabotinu, Malkenu, Melech Avotinu, Golenu, Elavotinu, Yotzrenu Tzurishwatinu. Kodenu matzilenu melam shemecha, in Elohim zuvachatecha, Ezrat avotenu atau me'olam. Tehilot le'el elyon baruch hu borach Moshe u'bnei Yisrael lechanu shiram ve'simcha rabba ve'yamru kulam I
silently. Going to page 175 to 192, and then we'll repeat it after we're done with the silent portion.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Eloheinu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor Hanora El Elyon Gomer Chasadim Tovim Vekoneh Hakol Vezocher Hasei Avod Umevhi Goel Bnei Leman Shemo B'Yahava Melech Ozer Moshiach Umagen Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham Uvoken Sarah Atah Gibor Elam Adonai Mechayim Etim Atah V'Hoshia Mechalchel Chaim B'Chesed Mechayim Etim B'Rachamim Rabim Zohar Noflim V'Rofet Oholim Umatir Asurim Umekayem
rise for the Kedusha.
נקדש שמך בעולם, כשם שמקישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד אביך, וכזה אל זה ואמר. קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלך כל הארץ כבודו. אז בקול רעש גדול, אדיר וחזק משמיעים קול, מנסים לעומת צרפים, לעומתם ברוך יאמרו. ברוך דבר אדוני במקומך מלכנו תופיע, ותמלוך עלינו כמחכים אנחנו לך. מתי תמלוך בציון? בקרוב בימינו לעולם ועד תשכון. תתגדל ותתקדש בתוך ירושלים עירך. נצחים פירושך נקיש, בשבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא יבוש לעולם ועד, כי המלך גדול וקדוש אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
You may be seated on page 181.
ישמח משה במתנתך חוקיים ונאמן קהלתנו, כן ליל תפארת בראשו נתת בעומדו לפניך על הר סיני, ושני זכות אבנים הוריד בידו, וכתוב בהם שמירת שבת, וכתוב בהם שמירת שבת, וכן כתוב בתורתך, וכן כתוב בתורתך, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל עוד כי לעולם, כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת וינפש. ולא נתתו אדוני אלוהינו לגויי הארצות, ולא הנחלת מלכנו לעבדי כסילים, וגם מנוחתו לשכנו ערלים, וישראל עמך נתתו באהבה זרע ליעקב אשר בם בחרת. המקדשי שביעי כולם ישבעו וידאגו מטובך, השביעי רצית בו וקידשתו, חמדת ימים אותו קראת, זכר למעשה בראשית. אלוהינו, אלוהי אבותינו, רצה מנוחתנו, קדשנו במצוותיך, ותן חלקנו בתורתך, שמחנו מטובך, ושמחנו בישועתך, ותטהר ליבנו Adonai, Nekadesh HaShabbat. Ritzeh Adonai Eloheinu v'Elcha Yisrael Tfilatam, Ve'asher v'tavod alivir beitecha, Yishei Yisrael Tfilatam v'yahavat tzedabel b'ratzon, v'tehil ratzon tamid, Avodat Yisrael Amecha, V'techezena Eineinu v'shuva l'tzion b'rachamim, Baruch atah Adonai, Hamachazer shchinato l'tzion. Modim anachnu lach, shatachu Adonai Eloheinu v'hi avotinu v'lamad, zor chainu v'kedishinu, atavu l'dor. Consecrate tfilatecha, al chayim tzrim b'yadecha, v'al nishmatim p'rot lahach, v'al nisanash b'chayim imanu, v'al nishmatecha v'tzvadash b'chayim v'esot chorayim. Atov kilo chalu rachamecha, v'rachem kilo tamu chasadecha, le'olam kivinu lav. Ve'ahav kolam yitbarach yitromam, shimcha malkeinu tamidi le'olam v'ha'ed. V'chol chachayim yodu chasela, v'yalalu et shimcha v'yamehet, v'yishratenu v'ezratenu sela. Baruch atah Adonai, atov shimcha lechana'el lechodo. Eloheinu Elokei avotenu, barakenu b'bracha mishulashet b'torah, haktuva al-yedei Moshe abdecha, amura mipi Aaron u'banav, kohanim am kiroshecha ka'amor, yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmelecha. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichunecha, Yisar Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. Sim shalom tova u'bracha ba'olam. Sim shalom tova u'bracha. Chem v'chasem rachamim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael amecha. L'arteinu avinu k'ulanu ke'echa be'or panecha. Sim shalom tova u'bracha ba'olam. Sim shalom tova u'bracha. Hireor panecha natata halanu Adonai Eloheinu, torat chayim v'ahavat chesed u'tzedaka u'bracha, v'rachamim v'chayim v'shalom. Sim shalom tova u'bracha ba'olam. Sim shalom tova u'bracha. V'tohu b'necha levarech et amecha Yisrael, b'chol beit u'b'chol shah, yishlomecha. Baruch atah Adonai, hamevarech et amo Yisrael b'shalom. Yikram yikadash shemei v'avad, ve'omad yirakirtei, ve'rikmokotei, v'chayef manu yavachanchei l'chol beit Yisrael, v'agalav bizman kariv v'yimeru. Yesh me'ela v'mevorach, le'olam u'me'omayah. Yitbarach yishtabach, yiv'ar t'mam yinaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalem v'yitol shmei l'kudeshai. Le'elam yikol berchatav shiratav, tishrachatav v'nachamatab, damiram v'yomah v'yimeru. Yikavel zotor v'atohon d'chol Yisrael, v'tama v'hon yirishmaya v'yimeru. Yehesh lama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'chol Yisrael v'yimeru. Oseh shalom b'mromah, hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'chol Yisrael v'yimeru.
Although you're going to continue Torah Service page 195, we invite our ARC openers, the Raskins, and our Torah carrier, David Mendelson, to to come on up at this time.
Ein kamocha laElohim Adonai ve'ein k'ma'asecha malchutecha malchut olamim u'memshaltecha b'chol dor v'dor Adonai melech Adonai melech Adonai yimloch le'olam v'hed Adonai hoz le'amo yikein Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom Av harachamim etiva b'tzoncha et Zion Tivnei chomot Yerushalayim Tivnei chomot Yerushalayim Kirecha levanatahnu Melech el ram v'nisa Adon olam
We rise as the ark is open.
Vayehi b'tzoa Aaron vayomer Moshe Uma Adonai ve'afusu oirecha ve'anusu v'sanecha mipanecha Ki mitzion tetzei Torah Ki mitzion tetzei Torah u'devar Adonai mirushalayim Baruch shenatan Torah Baruch shenatan Torah le'amo Yisrael Be'an arachet ve'lishmei kadisha yavira anna emartu shbecha ye'era v'kadama v'tiftach libi b'oraita v'tashli mishalim
All right, may be seated. We turn to page 1099, 1099, the very bottom. Parsha Shoftim, chapter 19, verse 14 is where we begin. And this is famous for the beginning. The tzedek tirdoflai, justice shall you pursue, and also Shoftim in general, judges. But that's not the part we're reading today in our third triennial. We have various laws, which are very interesting, I think, in their own right. And it begins with sort of a, dispute. What happens in theoretical disputes between neighbors when they keep moving the boundary? Right? This is still relevant today. This is some sort of good fences make good neighbors, and they're kind of unsure where that border is in this first aliyah. Chapter 19, verses 14 through 21. We call upon David Goodwin for the first aliyah, commemorating the York side of his father. And looks like Marshall Langfeld is the first Torah reader.
Ya'amo David ben Hananya HaKohen Baruch Shanatan Torah Le'amo Yisrael B'Kedushato Ve'atem Havetim B'Adonai Elohechem Chayim Kulchem Hayom Baruch Adonai Baruch Baruch Le'olam Va'ed Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Achavanu Mikol Hamim V'Natan Lanu Et Torato
Amen. Lo tasigu b'oreacha asher gavlu rishonim v'nachal asher tinchal ha'aretz asher ana Elohecha noten lecha l'rishta lo yakum ed echad v'ish l'chal avonu l'chal chatat v'chal chet asher yechata Al pi shnei edim, al pi shlosha edim, yakum davar, ki yakum ed chamas, ve'ish lanot bo sarah, ve'amdu shnei anashim, asher lahem hariv lifnei Adonai, lifnei hakohanim v'hashoftim, asher yiyu b'yamim hahem, v'darshu hashoftim hetev, V'hinei et sheker ha'ed sheker ha'navi achiv V'asitem lo kasher zamas lasod li'achiv V'virta hara mikirbecha V'anisharim yishma'u v'yira'u V'lo yosifu lasot V'kadavar hara hazeh b'kirbecha V'lo tachos enecha Nefesh v'nefesh Ayin v'ayin, shen v'shen, yad v'yad, regel v'ragel.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah tamid v'chayim olam v'tablet v'chein Baruch atah Adonai noten
Chapter 20, 1 through 4. They're about to go into the battle, and the Kohen actually gives the inspirational speech. For the second aliyah, we call upon Howard Davis, who is commemorating several York sites in his family. Often is the sponsor for the Kiddush around now. Because of this. Who's the Torah reader, though?
Amy.
Okay, Amy Tesla, very cool.
Ya'amod Aram ben Fable, Sheni.
Baruchu et Adonai HaBarak.
Baruch Adonai Barak Olam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai Barak Olam Vaed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher b'charbanu mikol ha'amim. V'natan lanu et Torto. Baruch atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Kita semanilkama. Osecha. Iraita. Susrekev amra. Mincha. Lotira mehem. Ki Adonai Elohecha. Ima. Ma'ala. Ba'aretz Mitzrayim. V'haya. Kifarahem. Hamuhama. Hamuhama. V'nigash HaKohen. V'diber El Ha'am. V'amar. Aleichem Shema Yisrael. Atem Kerevim. Hayom. V'milchama. All Ovehem. All Yoreh Livachem. All Tiru. All Tachbezu. All Te'artzu. Mipnehem. Ki Adonai Elohehem. Ha'oreh Imahem. V'kilachem Lahem. Imahem.
L'Moshiach
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher natan lanu Torah emet. V'chayei olam nota b'Eloheinu. Baruch atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Verses 5 through 9. Now, in battle, who cannot actually go to battle? That's going to include basically people who are with unfinished, important business and projects and love. So, betrothed couple, husband who's betrothed but not yet married, built a new house but hasn't dedicated yet. Same thing with a vineyard. But also those who can't take war or faint-hearted, they shouldn't go because they're not going to be effective. And we call upon Jeannie Korn to read the Torah and Stuart and Sarah for the Aliyah.
Yamdu Yisrael ben Shimon Baruchel, the Sarah bat Yisrael v'Shendel Shlishi.
Amen. V'diberu hashogrim el ha'am lemor mi ha'ish asher bana v'yichadash v'lo chanacho yelech v'yashov lebeto ken yamut b'milchama v'ish acher yachnechenu u'mi ha'ish asher nata keren v'lo chalelo hilelo yelech v'yashov lebeto ken yamut b'milchama v'ish acher yichalelenu umi ha'ish asher eras isha v'lo lekacha yelech v'yashov lebeto pen yamut b'milchama v'ish acher yikachena v'yasfu hashogrim v'daber el ha'am v'amaru האיש הירא ורך הלבב ילך וישוב לביתו ולא יימס את לבב אחיו כלבבו והיה ככלות השוטרים לדבר אל העם ופקדו שרי צבאות בראש העם.
ברכת אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי העולם נטל בתוכנו ברוך אתה אדוני נתנך.
All right, we are on chapter 20, verses 10 through 14. That is on page 1103, 1103 in the Gates Chaim Chumash. And basically, it's if you're going to battle, you approach the enemy and try to offer peace terms first. Call upon Noam for the Aliyah, and we call upon Lynn Langfeld to read Torah. The Torah readers are all very good friends of Oti Moore and Gould, who shortly, well, not shortly, but will be celebrating, maybe this whole year, they're celebrating their 50th anniversary.
Ya'amad Abinon ben Ephraim Revi'i.
Baruch et Adonai Barak.
Baruch Adonai Barak
Baruch Adonai Barak le'olam ba'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Ki tikra belir lahilachem aleha וקראת אליה לשלום, והיה עם שלום טענך, ופתה לך והיה כל העם הנמצא בה, יהיו לך למס ועבדוה, ואם לא תשלים עמך, ועשת עמך מלחמה וצרתה עליה ונתנה אדוני אלוהיך בידך והכית את כל סחורה ותתחרב רק הנשים והטף והבהמה וכל אשר יהיה בעיר כל שללה תבוא לה ואהבת את שללך אשר נתן אדוני אלוהיך לך.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu torat emet v'chayei olam natan b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
All right, we are now on the 5th Aliyah, which is that now this is some pretty ugly stuff we've got here in the next few Aliyahs, especially this one, chapter 20, verses 15 through 20. On certain idolatrous cities, you just have to completely get rid of, except the trees you keep. So there were some environmentalism going on at that time. And they're specifically referring to fruit trees, so they understood the utility. The Torah, or Moses, or God, or whatever your belief is on the authorship of the Torah, I'll just say God, but wasn't ready to deal with the fact that you needed trees just in general for the earth, so it restricts it to fruit trees, but still, it's an important environmental step listed in the Torah. So Jerry Levine is going to read the Torah, and for the fifth Aliyah, we call upon Michael Rose and Barbara Osseroff, and Barbara is commemorating 2 yard sites this Shabbat.
Yamdu, Basyakana ben Nachman ben Liza, the Shlomo Melech ben Sidvarut, Kamishi.
Amen. Amen. Ki ta'aseh l'chol ha'arim ha'rechokot mimecha ma'od asher lo merei ha'kolim ha'ele hena rak merei ha'amim ha'ele asher Adonai Elohecha noten lecha nachal otichayeh kol neshama ki ha'chareb tacharimem Hachiti, Ha'amori, Hakanani, Ha'peritzi, Hachivi, Ha'yivusi, Ha'asher Tzifcha, Adonai Elohecha. Lema, Asher, V'yondu Etchem, V'asot, Kilchoto, Avotam, Asher Asu, Elohehem, V'chatatem, Adonai Elohechem. Ki tatzor el ir, Yamim Rabim, V'chalachem, V'hilachem, Ameh ha'letafsa, L'tashchid, Eretzah, Mendoach, Alav Garzen, Ki Memenu Tochel, Oto, L'tachri, Tevro, Ki ha'adam etz hasadeh, Avo mepanecha b'matzu, Rak etz asher tedah, Ki mo etz, Ma'achohu, Oto tashchid, V'charata, Uvani tamatzor, Aha'ir asher hi osa imcha melchama ad rinata.
All right, we are now on the 6th Aliyah, chapter 21, verses 1 through 6. What happens if you find a corpse in your midst? You don't know whose it is, and there's a complicated ritual with a heifer that you have to slaughter, very similar to the red heifer, but not as detailed. And it's essentially, death was very scary, and to get past it, they needed rituals. We still, I would argue, have that. We need lots of rituals to be able to deal with death in our midst. So that's what we have. And this one we call Ann Levine for the Torah reading, and for the 6th Aliyah, we call upon Ellen Kaufman.
Amod Yael ben Natan B'chaya Shishi.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvorah.
Baruch Adonai Barach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'Torah.
Amen. Ki
Atzeh halal ba'adama asher Adonai Elohecha noten lecha l'rishta nofel basadeh lo noda mihikahu Vayatsu zekanecha v'shoftecha umadadu el he'arim asher sevivot hechalal v'haya ha'ir hakrova el hechalal v'lachu zeknei ha'ir ha'im Eglat bakar asher lo ubad ba asher lo mashcha be'o ve'horidu ziknei ha'ir ha'hiv et ha'eglat el nachal etan asher Lo ya'aved bo v'lo yizare'a ve'arfu sham et ha'egla v'nachal v'nibshu ha'kohanim b'nei Levi ki bam b'char Adonai Elohecha l'sharto uvarech b'shem Adonai v'apihem yehyeh kol rib v'kol daga v'chol ziknei ha'ir ha'iv ha'krovim el hachalal Yirchatsu et yadehem. I need the tropa. Yirchatsu et yadehem. Al ha'egla harufa vanachal. Now I lost myself there. Oh well. No, but I lost that last one.
That's a wrap. That's good.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu I'm losing it. Asher natan lanu Torah emet v'ha'elam notav b'tochenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Seventh Aliyah, more on that ritual, verses 7 through 9, and we call upon Warren and Oti Gold to come up for the Aliyah and the Torah reading.
Ya'amad Zev ben Abraham v'chana shvi'i.
Miko Amavera Benatan Lanu et Torato Baruch Atah Adonai Notain HaTorah. Amen.
Amen. Ve'anu ve'amru yadeinu lo shafu et ha'am hazeh ve'neinu lo ra'u kapel emcha Yisrael asher badit Adonai ve'al titen dam naki be'keref amcha Yisrael ve'nikapel lahem adam ve'ata teva'er ha'tam naki miketvecha Kita seha yashar b'nei Adonai.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam v'tzapet tokenu Baruch atah Adonai notein HaTorah.
Amen.
Could I have, let's see, Josh and Larry and Paul and Steve Shue come on up?
Just that.
I'm looking for some pipe here.
Put out a call for the
We'll
song.
go on the other side. Here's where we can get it. Oh, you can stand right there. That's good. That'll work. That'll work. Just give me a second. All right.
Oh, sorry.
All right, good. All right. Let's do a special Mishabara in honor of 50 years together. And actually, so I won't interrupt the Mishabara. Just in addition to 50 beautiful years together, many of those years spent here at Temple Beth Abraham in incredible service to the community, president of the men's club, and teacher of all kinds of classes, Torah, and also on rituals of death and mourning and the psychology of that. And OT will be doing Haftorah today. How many students did you also teach Haftorah to? Amazing caterer as well. Still remember her meal trying to redo the red stew from Genesis till the goats, and countless passages of Torah, Haftorah, and prayers for the new month, and so many friendships that you develop here. So we are all honored to be here in celebration of you. V'chana she'ala l'chot m'makom l'kvod ha'torah l'kvod ha'shabbat v'yavakala Yochana v'Avraham Asar Shabbat l'makom l'kvod ha'torah l'kvod ha'shabbat HaKadosh Baruch Hu yodechem l'bnot Beit Yisrael asher bo yishkenu aha v'yachalash v'nashom b'riyut v'chzak l'chav ha'atzma v'chom v'sedim kol shoraychem v'nomar Amen. Bless your sisters Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. Bless this bride and groom. Roti and Warren have been called to the Torah to honor the Torah, honor Shabbat, and so much honor for our community. May the Holy One continue to increase in your home love and harmony, peace and friendship, and may God send blessing and success in all the work of your hands. And let us say, Amen. Remain standing for the Chatzi Kaddish, I believe, right? Yep. Okay.
Yikada, Yikada, Shemei Rabba, Adira, Piritanium, Lif, Malchute, Israel, Arvi Ramambi Nase Vitatar Vitale Vitalal Shemei Kudusha Leila Min Kover Chata V'Shirata Shemata V'Nehemata Amen.
We may be seated, and those last three verses are repeated as OT recites the Aliyah as our maftir.
Tamod Yochana Bar Abraham V'Sara Hamaftir.
Baruch et Adonai Hamorach.
Baruch
Adonai Hamorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen.
וענו ואמרו ידינו לא שפכו את הדם הזה ועינינו לא ראו כפר לך ישראל אשר פדית אדוני ואל תיתן דם נקי בקרב עמך ישראל ונכפר להם הדם ואתה תבער הדם הנקי מכתבך כי תעשה הישר
בעיני אדוני.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Inclusive blessing for all who read. Mishbrech Alatin Avraham Yitzhak L'Koser. From Kol Chavalei Avrech. Et Kol Grima Shel Levayim. Et Kol Makam Lekol Torah Blikvot HaShabbat. Just Baruch Hu Yivarech Ot Tameh. Mishpachal V'Asach Chavat Tzchad V'Chatzendei Kol Shel Chayat Melmar. Amen. And for all those who are ill, we're thinking especially today of Carol Bonar. No, that's the list here. We go. Anytime it doesn't start with Scott Lawrence, I know I'm on the wrong list. Scott Lawrence, Dahlia Bat Razel, Barbara Rose, Ilya Oak, Karina Gola Bat Hadav Yehuda Tzvi, Leah Yehudi Bat Shena Shatedov Ben Moshe, Ray Rancho, Rosie German, Yechiel Ben Elizah, Shulamit Bat Leah, Marini Gottschalk, Elizabeth Rob Raphael Ben Esther, Moshe Ben Ravain, Aaron McCann, Patricia Bill Quenta Rose, Rachel Shulamit Bat Yehudi, Leroy Muzzy, Rachel Bet Esther Fruma, Yitzchak Ben Atam Sarah, Mary Beth Shu Brower, Shalomit Bat Ruvain, Baruch Ruchel, Bill Hale, Uru Rivka Bat Shmuel Vakola, Andy Goldstein, Yoni Yosef Ben Shmuel, Eliana Bat Gila Bedon, Yoshua Ben Malka Tova, Andy Goldstein. If you have any other names of those who are ill, please just say them aloud at this time to add to our prayers. I forgot to ask in advance. Jeannie, are you up for singing a Misha Barak today, or? Perfectionists don't love when we put them on the spot, but I appreciate it.
Misha Barak Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak Yaakov Sarah Rivka Rachel Leah Uvarech Rabbe et Hacholim El Narefana
Avotenu, Avraham, Yitzhak, v'Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, v'Leah, v'Yivarech, v'Rapeh, et Achorim.
Yashakora, we rise for the Haggadah and Lila, lifting and dressing the Torah. We call upon Rick Heger and Alice Hale. Please rise.
Yamod, Magvir Tamod, Hagolelet.
Page 1108, 1108, the introduction of 1107. Haftorah is from Isaiah 51:12. It's the fourth Haftorah of consolation, of comfort, following Tisha B'Av. I think it's the best one, or maybe the second best one. The first one's really good too, because you're going to hear, there's all kinds of musical associations in it. Look carefully, and I'm going to go over them later with other prayers in the Jewish tradition. And, you know, it's essentially, it's going to be okay, everybody. In fact, that first word is awesome. Menachemchem, which is, it's hard to say, but it's a fun word. It's, I am the comforter, the one who comforts. God's going to be there for us. Everything will be okay, no matter how dark things seem right now. In our exile, we'll get back to the land. Good things are coming. So, that's it.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher בחר במילים טובים, ורצה בדבריהם הנאמרים באמת. ברוך אתה אדוני, הבוחר בתורה ומשה עבדו, ובישראל עמו, ובנביאי האמת והצדק. אנוכי, אנוכי, הוא מנחמכם, מיד ותראי מאנוש ימות, ומבן אדם חצי נפל. ותשכח אדוני יוסף, נוטה שמיים ליוסף הארץ, ותפחד תמיד כל היום, מפני חמת המצית, כאשר גונן להשחית, ועייף חמת המצית. מהר צוער להיפתח, ולא ימות לשחת, ולא יחסר לחמות. ואנוכי אדוני אלוהיך, רוגע הים, היהמוק עליו, אדוני צבאות שמו. ואשים דברי בפיך, ובצל ידי כיסיתיך, לנטוע שמיים ולסעוד ארץ, ולאמור בציון עמי אתה. התעוררי, התעוררי, ומירושלים אשר שתית מיד אדוני את כוס חמתו, את תגובת כוס התרעלה שתית מצית. ei מההלה מכל בנים ילדה, ואין מחזיק בידה מכל בנים גידלה. שתיים אינה קוראותייך, מי ענו לה השור והשבר, והרעה והחרב, מי ינחמך? פנייך הולכו שחו בראש כל חוצות, כתום יחמר, המראים חמת אדוני גאלת אלוהיך. לכן שנינה זאת ענייה ושחורת ולא מיין. כה אמר אדוני אלוהים, ואלוהיך יריב עמו, הנה לקחתי מידך את כוס התרעלה, את קופת כוס חמתי, לא תוסיפי לשתותה עוד. ושמתיה ביד מוגייך, אשר אמרו לנפשך, שכבי ונעבורה. ותעשי בארץ קבר, ובחוץ לעברי. אורי אורי, לבשי עוזך ציון, לבשי בגדי תפארתך. ירושלים עיר הקודש, כי לא יוסיף, יבוא בקור ערב ותענה. התנעתי מעפר ומשפי ירושלים, התפתחי עמוס והי צווארך, שרייה בציון. כי כה אמר אדוני, חינם נמכרתם, ולא בכסף תקראו. כי כה אמר אדוני אלוהים, מצרים ירד אני בראשונה לגור שם, ואשוב באפס השחור. ואתה אמר לפונם אדוני, כי לוקח אני חינם. מושלך יהגלילו נאמר אדוני, ותמיד כה היום שמי נמנועץ. לכן ידע מי שמי, לכן ביום ההוא, כי אני הוא המדבר הנני. מדפו על ירים רגלי מבשר, משמיע שלום, מבשר טוב משמיע ישועה, אומר לציון מלאך אלוהיך. כל צופייך נשאו כל יחדיו ירננו, כי עין בעין יראו, ושוב אדוני ציון. פיצחו רננו יחדיו חורבות ירושלים, כי ניחם אדוני עמו קהל ירושלים. חשף אדוני את זרוע קודשו לעיני כל הגויים, וראו כל אפסי ארץ את ישועת אלוהינו. סורו סורו צאו משם, טמא אל תיגעו, צאו מתוכה, היפרו, לא זעי כלי אדוני. כי לא בחיפזון תצאו, ובמנוסה לא תלכון. כי הולך לפניהם אדוני, ומאספכם אלוהי ישראל. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, צור כל העולמים, צדיק וכל הדורות. האל הנאמן האומר ועושה, המדבר ומקיים, שכל דבריו אמת וצדק. נאמן אתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו, ונאמנים דבריך, ודבריך מדבריך, אחור לא ישוב ריקן. כי אל מלך נאמן ורחמן אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הנאמן בכל דבריו. רחם על ציון כי היא בית חיינו, ולעלוות נפש תושיע במהרה בימינו. ברוך אתה אדוני, משמח ציון בבניה. שמחנו אדוני אלוהינו, אליהו הנביא עבדך, ומלכות בית דוד נשיבך. במהרה יבוא ויקל ליבנו, על כסאו לא ישב זר, ולא ינחלו אור אחרים את כהורו. כי בשם קודשך נשבעת לו, שלא ייתן עירו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן דוד. על התורה ועל העבודה ועל הנביאים ועל יום השבת הזה, שנתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו, לקדושה ולמנוחה, לכבוד ולתפארת. על הכל אדוני אלוהינו אנחנו מודים לך ומברכים אותך. יתברך שמך בפי כל חי תמיד לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, מקדש השפט.
Thank you, Oti. We're going to continue now with a prayer for the state of Israel on page 224. Avinu Shabashamayim, Tzur Yisrael, Alo, Orech et Hinat Yisrael, Reshit Tzmichat Kulatenu, Agen Aleha, Ve'evrat Chasdecha, Ufros Aleha, Sukat Shlomecha, Ushlach Borcha Ve'abitcha Rashea, Zorea Ve'otzea, V'takneim Ve'etza Tova Milfanecha, Chazek et Yidei B'nei Eretz Kodshenu, Ankinem Eloheinu Yeshua, V'ater Nitzachon Teotrev, V'natata Shalom, Simchat Olav, Yoshbeha, V'nomar, Amen. And so we'll read in English as well. Our Av that is in heaven, Rock of Israel, its Redeemer, bless the state of Israel, the first flowering of her redemption. Shield her with the wings of your loving kindness, spread over her the shelter of your peace. Send your light and your truth to her heads of state, your ministers and her advisors. Restore them with good counsel before you. Strengthen the hands of those who defend your holy land. Bequeath to them, our God, salvation. Adorn them with the crown of triumph, and grant peace in the land, and eternal joy to its inhabitants. And let us say, Amen. Entree, page 231. There's one 7th grader and one 8th grader. I know there's now 2 7th graders. So 8th and 7th graders, come on up for entree.
יושבי ביתך, עוד יפעלוך סלע. תהילה לדוד, ערבים חילך המלך, ברכה שמך לעולם ועד. כבדו אדוני ומלאו, ולגדולתו אין חקר. זכר רבתך יביאו, בצדקתך ירננו. טוב אדוני לכל, ורחמיו בכל מעשיו. כן לא נוחות יאמרו, ותברכך ידברו. מלכותך מלכות כל עמים, וממשלתך Shabbat Yishma V'Yoshiem. Te'ilat Adonai Yedaber Pi, V'Yavarech Kol Basar Shem Kodsho Le'olam Va'ed.
Alex is going to stay up here. He becomes bar mitzvah next Shabbat. He's going to lead us in Mizmor LeDavid today as we rise. So we turn the Sefer Torah to the Ark, our carrier, Ark openers. Come on.
Yehalelu Hashem Adonai, Ki Nizkar Shemo Levado.
It usually has a bar bat mitzvah associated with it. Like Greg Korn, and I know Jeannie was telling me this morning, remembering that. I know two of the Karazis had it, and Simone Weiss, Scott Tesler, and also me, actually. So this was my bar mitzvah portion, the Haftarah. And I have some strong musical associations, as I was mentioning, with this particular Haftarah. Most come from the text, the lyrics that are in other prayers. We're going to explore those in a moment. But first comes from the other musical association I have, a story I've told before, so some of you know this story. I never get tired of telling it. It's just, so I'm telling it again. Because I learned my Haftorah at summer camp with a cassette tape. And what happened at my camp, called El Rancho Navarro, which was in Philo, California, in Mendocino County, there were only about 80 or 90 campers per 3-week session. It was not an officially Jewish camp, but it was run by Jewish social workers, the great Irving and Edna Newman of blessed memory from Petaluma. And it was very strict. You couldn't bring no candy, no gum, no comic books, no music. And, they weren't allowed, you couldn't send care packages with them, none of that. They wanted you to just really experience camp. And there was one exception, though. If you were studying for your bar mitzvah, you could bring a cassette tape with your Torah portion or Haftorah portion on it. And so I had my cassette tape for this Haftorah, and I was allowed during what Jewish camps called menucha and this camp called siesta to leave the cabin and practice my Haftorah. Well, my older brother Barry, with all his great tech, he took a cassette recorder, and at the end of my Haftorah tape, where there was plenty of room, he played an album and recorded it at the end of the cassette. You could hear all kinds of clicks and scratches and whatever, and recorded the music to Freebird by Leonard Skinner. So every day that I would go out there during siesta, I would learn a couple psukim, a couple chapters, and then I would reward myself with Freebird. So I always associate this Haftorah not only with the things we're going to explore today, but also with Freebird. Now, this Haftorah, as most Haftorah do, say a lot about God and the Jewish view of God. And there are sort of two main categories when we think of theology and God. How do you view God? Transcendence versus imminence. Okay, these are sort of technical terms, and some of you may be familiar with them. Basically, transcendence means God's, way up there, a process, maybe a being, but not, nothing anthropomorphic. Something that our rational brain maybe can even get our heads around. God is God is something, but it's unknowable. Maimonides is associated with this. No body, incorporeal. Transcendent. We can't quite get a grip on it, but our brain can. It's easier for a rational brain to believe in that kind of God. The problem with it is that it's distant, right? If God's transcendent, way up in the sky, or not an actual being, it's hard to relate to. That God is philosophical. The other pole is what we call imminence. God is imminent, which means right there for us. Like your friend, like just a stranger on the bus, to quote a 90s song. I think there's a few people who will catch that reference. That's not my musical ear, but it's but What If God Was One of Us by Joan Osborne, who was excommunicated from the Catholic Church for this particular song. And anyway, so God's sort of right there for us, right next to us, guiding us. That's the nice part. The problem with this is it makes God almost like a person. So that's a little hard philosophically to wrap your head around rationally. You have to really have a sort of a mystical view of that. So transcendence versus imminence. And in Judaism, God is essentially both, but different Jewish philosophers emphasize different parts of God. The Kabbalists and the mystics are more about God. Well, I won't even say the Kabbalists. Let's say because they do both also. But let's say the Hasids are more about God's imminence, God being right with us, and the Maimonides is more about God's transcendence. And what you're going to see in this Haftorah, you're going to see both, right? You're going to see that God was out there creating the universe, really doing those gigantic things. It was not easy. That's God's transcendence. But you're also going to see God's imminence. Menachemchem, I'm a comforter. And Hineni, what's more imminent than that? I am here for you in your times of need. So now I want to look at some of these words, which will become lyrics in a sense, but really liturgy, that reappear in our prayer book in various forms that are ripped right out of this Haftorah, and using poetic license and brought into certain parts of our liturgy. And they kind of represent the past, the present, and the future. So let's start with 51:13. If you want to take your Chumash out again, we're going to play a little Name That Lyric. There's a bunch of games like this on TV. There's one where they throw water at you. I don't quite understand that one, but where you have to finish the lyrics like a celebrity thing. I don't know what it's called, but anyway, you're going to, it won't be that hard for some of them. You're going to name the prayer. In verse 13, page 1108, 1108. Vatishkach Adonai Osecha, you've forgotten God, your maker. And then here's the part, Notei Shamayim v'Yosed Aretz. Name that tune. Just say it out loud. No? Aleinu. Notei Shamayim v'Yosed Aretz. All right, that's what it is. God spread out the heavens and established the earth, which has another musical association from growing up Reform in the 1970s. There was an English version of that part of the Aleinu, which we do as Notei Shamayim, which is traditional, but it's really just a German drinking song, but put to those words. I'm serious about that. But in the Reform synagogues, or temples, I would say, it was, you might have heard, let us adore the ever-living God, and establish it, the earth. I thought, when I was little, that establish it was the word, and that there was an extra syllable in there. So that's it right there, to establish it, the earth, right there. So this is God, and what's God doing here? Being transcendent, God created. Don't forget that God, everything. And although that mostly represents the past, I think the idea here is that God's continuously creating. The process isn't over. It's a sort of progressive revelation, to quote, or to paraphrase a concept by Reform thinker Abraham Geiger. So that's the first one. That's the Aleinu, 51:13. And so now let's go to 51:17 and 52:1 and 52:2. Okay, so 51:17, Hitorari, Kumi. 52:1, Uri, and 52:2, Lishi, Bigdei, Tifartech, Lechadodi. Lechadodi is like one of the most intricately sculpted poems that it's all liturgy, but it somehow spells out the author's name with the first letter of each verse. I mean, it's really something, this person put. I mean, so much creativity and effort into this. And what does it mean here in the context? Well, first, in the context of Lechadodi, imagine this was created by the Jewish mystics, the Kabbalists in Sfat, and they're looking over that beautiful view of the mountains, and they come, they're all dressed in white, they're ready for Shabbat, they're there, it's as if God's the groom, and the people of Israel are the bride, and they're like, wake up, shake off the week, God's here. Here in Isaiah, it's a little different. Hidori, rouse yourself, Uri, awake, Lishi bigdei tifartech, dress in garments of splendor. There's also Hinari me'afar kumi, shake off the dust and arise. And it appears more or less in the reverse order that it appears in Lechadodi, but I don't think there's anything significant to that. That's just the poetry and the poetic license. But the idea is, the people in this, or perhaps Jerusalem, but for the people in Lechadodi, it's more Jerusalem personified as a person in here. It's like, we're gonna wake up, we're gonna rise again, because remember, they're in exile in Isaiah's time. Jerusalem's a memory at this point. It's been razed by the Babylonians. And it's gonna wake up. So it's kind of an ode to Jerusalem, but we're part of that too, right? We have to wake up and celebrate Shabbat, or we have to wake up and create a kind of world where we can get back to Jerusalem, literally and figuratively. And so this kind of represents the present, right? If Notei Shamayim V'Haaretz, I created the universe. The past, but now we're going to wake up. We're a part of it. We're with God in it, and the creation and the comforting go on. So we got Aleinu, we got L'chadodi. The last one actually isn't in the liturgy, but you may know it. We're going to go to 52.7 now, so on page 1110, the bottom. How welcome on the mountain are the footsteps of the herald announcing happiness, heralding good fortune. Ma navu al heharim raglei mevaser, mashmiya shalom, mashmiya Yeshua. Anyone know? You got it, Paul. And all right, he's singing Ma navu el heharim, which is better known to most of us probably as the Israeli dance. And I imagine, I don't actually know, and I'm sure I could research it, but so I confess that I didn't. And which is that it was probably taken as an Israeli dance because, and it's a popular song as well in Israel because we're talking the pioneering spirit, and Israel's just being created, and what it's basically, it's optimism. It's like, wow, good tidings are coming. In Isaiah's context, it's really like, hey, someone's going to come and announce the Messiah is coming and a new era. Everything's going to be amazing. And so, you can imagine them singing and dancing in a kibbutz and with this song. And, I would say this represents the future, right? Shamayim created the heavens and the earth, the past, awake, Zion, the present, and Manavu Acharim, how welcome will be the footsteps of the one who announces that good tidings are coming. So past, present, future, God being imminent and transcendent. If you want to take it to us today, I know it depends on your point of view. You may consider the times to be very dark. It depends whether you're comparing it to, 1950 or, 1050. What that means or how dark the times may be. But, we're still here. There may be an increase in anti-Semitism, but we're still here. Israel is created. It really is a miracle in many ways. We had a very scary virus that could have wiped out, it did wipe out lots of people, but not enough that the population of the world still isn't growing, which in itself can be a problem, but we're okay. And so perhaps good tidings are coming. So we're going to conclude, as Evan Karazi did in his bar mitzvah, which was he ended with the Israeli dance Manavu, and I'll kind of do it back here, but you won't be able to see my feet because that's probably a good thing. So Karen is going to come up and model the Israeli dance, and if anyone wants to do it at your seat, if you know Manavu, stand up. Let's have a little fun. All right, Charles, you want to come up and do it over on this side, maybe? Don't you be blanketed. All right, anyone don't do it at your seat? Sarah, I saw you were standing up. You know it from Ramah, maybe? All right, here we go. And if you don't want to do it, you don't have to, but it's really fun. I promise, it's really fun. All right, here we go. Manavu el heharim raglei mevaser. Manavu el heharim raglei mevaser. Mashemiah Yeshua, Mashemiah Shalom. Mashemiah Yeshua, Mashemiah Shalom. One more time. Manavu el heharim raglei mevaser. Manavu el heharim raglei mevaser. Mashemiah Yeshua, Mashemiah Shalom. Mashemiah Yeshua, Mashemiah Shalom. Yasher Koach. And Shabbat Shalom. All right. We will continue with our Musaf service, page 239, and we're going to invite Aviv Berlin up to lead us in Musaf on page 239. And yeah, come on up. And she wants to keep her skills fresh. Bat mitzvah, not on Shoftim, about 3 years ago already? Maybe even 4, all right. Here we go. Please rise.
Ulan
Samin Kedushat Panaktish Tushima Eloheinu Bihinu Loyamush Leolam Leolam Vaed Kadosh Vekadosh Vekadosh Ata Yelech Gadol Gadol Vekadosh 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 Ata Amen. We continue on our own, pages 247 through 258. Harish Shalem, page 259. Let's stay up there for our lady.
prayers for the Aleinu, and make sure you do the Shekuna Teshamayim part.
Katu betota Adonai Yimol Be'olam
Thank you, Aviv. We're going to, before we do Mourner's Cards, we're going to turn to page 89 for Psalm 27. So you know if you want to come lead that on page 89, the psalm that we do every day during the month of Elul. I meant to do it at the beginning of services, but didn't, so we're at it in now.
Achat sha'ati me'et Adonai otavakesh. Achat sha'ati me'et Adonai otavakesh. Shiti bebeit Adonai kol yemei hayai. Lachazot benoam benoam Adonai ulevaker beheichalo. Lachazot benoam benoam Adonai ulevaker beheichalo. Lehem anti leroketu Adonai beretz chayim el Adonai chazak emet tzidaka vekabe el Adonai.
On this Shabbat, we lovingly recall the memory of our departed relatives and friends whose yahrzeits we observe during the coming week. Think especially today of Keva Adowich, Hedda Bacharach, Helen Bachman, Carol Bonar, Kenneth Brash, Herman Budman, Sandra Pullman Burt, Arthur Casson, Abraham Davis, Celia Davis, David Davis, Philip Davis, Edith Denenberg, Yehudi Eliyahu, Larry Frankel, Elizabeth Glasser, Kenneth Goodwin, Rachel Gordon, Milton Greenberg, Francis Hockman, Constance Howard, Manfred Kahn, Joy Kaufman, Jerry Kopp, Barry Stephen Kramer, Erna Landsberger, Joseph Loeb, David Nurnberg, John Odenheimer, Joel Osseroff, Juliet Rothstein, Gal Arsadian, Eileen Salt, Abraham Schaefer, Sue Stevens, Francis Turchin, Dirsha Uretsky, and we're in the Shloshim for Martin Sherman. The memories have all been with us. We ask all those who are mourning or observing Yort, so as anyone else who wishes to rise from the mourner's cottage, page 267. Yid Gadal, V'Yid Kadash, Shemei Rabbah, V'Alma, Divrach Yeruteh, V'Amlich Malchuteh, V'Chayechon, V'Yomechon, V'Chayechol Beit Yisrael, V'Galah, V'Zman Kari, V'Yibru, Yishmei Rabbah, V'Orach, V'Yavah, V'Nehol Maya, Yid Barach, V'Yishtabach, Yid Bahar, Yid Ramam, Yid Naseh, V'Tadar, V'Taleh, V'Talat, Shmei Dekutshah, Barichu, La'ela, Amin, Kol Berchata, V'Shilata, Tushbechata, V'Nehemata, Namiran Be'alma, V'Yibru, Yehei Shlama Rabba Min Shemayim, V'Chaim Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael, V'Yibru, Oseh Shalom V'Mrama, Uyaseh Shalom, Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael, V'Yibru, Amen. Zichronam Livracha. May the memory of the people you've come to say Kaddish for be a blessing to you always. And let us say Amen. Call upon Lady Goodwin, President of the Congregation, for announcements.
Shabbat Shalom and happy holiday weekend. So nice to have 3 days. Thank you very much to David Paulson and Amber Hyman for ushering, and to Chazanet Yael for doing the Shachrit and bits at the end, and to Aviva Berlin for the Musaf service. Thanks to Marshall Langfeld, Amy Tesler, Jeannie Korn, Lynn Langfeld, Jerry Levine, Ann Levine, and O.T. Gould for the Torah reading. And a huge mazel tov to Warren and O.T. Gould for their 50th wedding anniversary and for sponsoring the Kiddush lunch today. And to Josh Mailman for streaming the service. And when I realized he was actually standing on a step, I was wondering as he was holding the tallis up whether he was, I knew he was tall, but I didn't think he was 7'8". Then I realized he was on the step. And thank you to the rabbi for the drash. My one comment, sort of, is someone told me many years ago that music is always best when you're 15. And which for me is absolutely true. I happen to be 15 in a terrific year for music, but I think that may carry over to the rabbi as well. So Kiddush lunch today, as I mentioned, and then morning minyan Monday and Thursday at 8 o'clock in the chapel. Wednesday, weekly text study with the rabbi in the courtyard at 9. The Women of TBA and Low Vision Board event at 7. And next Saturday is the bar mitzvah of Alex Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.
A few additional things. First is I'm starting Introduction to Judaism class again this Sunday night at 8 p.m. So not this Sunday, not like tomorrow, but a week from tomorrow, in the Baum Center, 8 p.m. And some of you already know about it, and just contact me for more information. And for those who are guests, and I'm going to introduce some of them in a moment, the way we're working things now is we're going to do Kiddush and Hamotzi here. So you can go down, leave your masks on, take your food in the social hall, and then go outside and eat in the courtyard. And I know it's hot, we're in the middle of a heat wave, but again, we're not in Concord, and we're not in San Jose, and we're not in Mississippi, and we're not in Las Vegas, you're still in Oakland, and relatively appreciate how pleasant it is to be out there. Okay. A few guests, so let me, or not quite guests, but they've been here just a couple of times. So we have Brandon and Shruti. So, that. All right. And their last stop before it was Princeton, New Jersey, I think. Is that correct? Sort of. Okay. I know they definitely spent some time there. And apparently this is not a relative of mine, but this is Isaac, Bloom, and Abby. So Isaac and Abby, but he spells his name, pronounces it blue, but he spells it with a U. Right, so, excellent, thank you. And how about right here? These two, I didn't recognize them, maybe I don't know them, but they know Manavu. They know the dance.
I'm Annabelle Hutton.
I'm Noah Phillips, and we're visiting from West Oakland.
All right, great to have you, Noah and Annabelle. All right. Do we know you?
Levana.
This is Livana. You maybe here one time? No. No? No, this is your first time. So Livana, and you live locally as well? All right. Welcome. So welcome to all our new. Did I miss anybody? No, but we want to say happy birthday, right? Whose birthday, right? One of yours. Yom. Nada's birthday. Yom Haledet Sameach. Yom Haledet Sameach. Yom Haledet Sameach. Yom Haledet Sameach. All right. You introduce you guys one more time or no? You're good. Yeah, one more time. All right, we have Megan and Jordan. Megan and Jordan, and welcome to them. They've been here a few times, but so we'll stop introducing them soon. But today's we've got a whole bunch of B'nai Mitzvah coming up, so anyone who's sort of new today, I wanted to make sure everybody saw, say hello to them, offer to eat with them, whatever they do. So anyway, all right. We are going to conclude before Kiddush with Adon Olam, page 269. To the tune of Freebird? I doubt it.
Adon Olam asher malach b'terem kol yitzir nifra ve'yenasa v'chefso kol azay melech shemo nikra ve'acharei tiflot hachol levado yimloch noa ve'hu haya ve'hu hover ve'hu yiyeh v'tzipara ve'hu echad ve'en sheni lehamshir lo lehachbira ve'lireishit ve'litachlit ve'lo ha'oz ve'ha'isra ve'hu eli ve'chai no'ali ve'tzor tadli ve'tzara ve'hu nisi umanos li ve'nakosi ve'yom ekra ve'yado apid ruchi ve'yedishan ve'ayira ve'im ruchi geriati Adonai li ve'lo yira yai dai 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 yai dai 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 yai dai 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 yai dai dai dai. Shabbat shalom.
Please rise. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et Hashem Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafel. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam motzi lechem min haaretz. Shabbat shalom.